Our next guest actually is someone Alan Young knows quite well. He's been a longtime advocate for legalizing marijuana in this country, and most recently he has agreed to surrender himself to American authorities for distributing marijuana seeds in the United States. And you may have heard Marc Emery referred to as the Prince of Pot, and he joins us now in Vancouver. Do you like that moniker, Prince of Pot, Marc?
Yes, I do. CNN gave that to me when they did a worldwide special on me in 1997. And I'm flattered because although a prince is sort of a monarch, I like to think that if people use that, it shows that they have respect for my statesmanship and my ability to bring this issue to the forefront of the people around the world who smoke cannabis and use cannabis, like to see me active, and they like that title.
So why are you surrendering yourself?
Well, ultimately, it's kind of a bit of, I don't want to use the term blackmail, not that the U.S. Justice Department would do that sort of thing, but in order to get my co-accused, Michelle Rainey, who has Crohn's disease, a very painful disease that she takes medical marijuana for, she wouldn't be allowed to take medical marijuana in a U.S. jail, and she'd likely have a very, very miserable time of it. And that's a compelling reason to strike a deal with the U.S. if I can, to get, and it's contingent on that Greg Williams and Michelle Rainey, my co-accused, do not do any jail time. I said I would be willing to be charged in Canada and face jail time both in the United States and Canada to a very onerous 5 years. You wouldn't get 5 years in actual custody in Canada if you brought a boatload of hashish in. It's just not happened for 20 some odd years that someone would actually spend 5 years in custody. It's a 10-year sentence. I'd have to spend 5 years in custody before even getting day parole, so it's extremely severe. And I think that's why the Canadian government's agreed to negotiate now when they wouldn't charge me before. They want some severe penalty both in Canada and the United States to send a message to cannabis activists.
When do you start serving time?
Could be as soon as 30 to 60 days from now.
And when will you know?
Well, I'll know as soon as negotiations are complete. They're in the midst of it now with the Canadian Prosecutorial Service and U.S. Justice Department and my lawyers.
You have to have a little trepidation about going to prison?
No, I'll tell you why. Because for 17 years I've been leading this revolution to legalize marijuana. There are no victims here. No one's complaining after a decade of selling these seeds. We gave away over $4 million to activist groups trying to bring peaceful democratic change about. So I'm very proud of my legacy. I'm not repentant in any way. I'm not contrite. I'd do more if I could. And I'm really looking forward to doing more when I get out after 5 years.
Well, if you're not contrite, do you believe that you've been prosecuted for selling seeds? Or are you being prosecuted because you've made this a political issue?
Oh, well, there's hundreds of seed vendors in Canada, many of whom have been selling to the Americans for years and years, and none of them give their money away to any kind of political activities. All my money went to political activities. There was no other purpose to raise this money other than for political activities. So I've never owned an apartment, a property, a bond, a stock, bank accounts of any kinds. I have no assets. I never had any assets. The whole purpose was to raise money for the movement, and we did that very successfully, and we've created quite a worldwide movement as a consequence.
So what do you think of the current laws concerning marijuana in Canada today?
Well, clearly no law should ever punish people in a free and democratic society for a peaceful, honest lifestyle. And to me, it's just like choosing to be a Christian or a homosexual or any number of choices we make. A religious person. Smoking marijuana alters your consciousness so that you look at the world differently. And I think a fundamental aspect of being human is being able to put things into your body and finding out how that affects your mind and what decisions you can make about religion, about philosophy, about your life and family from those decisions. So marijuana smoking is peaceful and honest. It should be protected. No one should ever go to jail for anything to do with marijuana.
And what if it's self-destructive?
Well, of course, people are entitled as adults in a free and democratic society to do things that are self-destructive and to be responsible for their own actions. And I think all marijuana people would like to be responsible for their own actions. We certainly don't see harm in what we do. We don't want to deal with Hell's Angels. We don't want to deal with organized crime gangs. We want to be able to buy it in a calculated, government-approved facility and go home and take our marijuana and be able to smoke it in peace. And I think that should seem reasonable to anybody.
And yet, by continuing the habit, any Canadian is in fact supporting the Hells Angels and the biker gangs and organized crime.
Oh, you've reversed cause and effect. In fact, it's the government's policy of prohibition that's created organized crime. So anybody who advocates prohibition, like the Conservative Party is doing and the Liberal Party has done, is advocating the continued dominance of organized crime over the distribution of these goods. I'm, in fact, advocating that government take the initiative and put these in regulated and controlled facilities so everybody knows what's going on, taxes are collected, laws are obeyed, and everybody is in a win-win situation, including both the cannabis consumer and those people who don't consume cannabis.
Mark, what do you think about this decision, this recent court case that Alan Young was involved in against Health Canada? Do you think it's bringing us closer to changing the way marijuana is viewed in this country and the way the laws are?
Well, only 2,000 Canadians have those permits, so it's really a relevant bit of federal law that's been altered for 2,000 people. The rest of Canadians, including the 400,000 Alan referenced, aren't going to be any better off because they don't have a permit to legally possess and they can't legally designate anyone to grow for them unless they have that permit. So for a few places like Island Harvest in Comox Valley in British Columbia, they're going to be growing for 30 or 40 people. It'll be a lot cheaper, about $50 an ounce instead of the government's $150 an ounce. It'll be better product, but it'll be something that benefits a very small number of people in this country.
Well, thanks for being with us tonight, Mark. Good luck in your negotiations.
Thank you.
Legalizing pot, a volatile economy, should make for a pretty interesting round table. Coming up, radio host Christy Clark and Andrew Crystal. Join us when the verdict returns.